Hi, welcome into Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles. I'm Edie Hand, and joining me is my co-host,
Dr. Daniel Potts. Good to be with you, Edie.
It's always great to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and this show is very touching and with autism, and, you know, I've learned so much about love. We talk about it a lot, but in autism, it's an unconditional love that children, and they become young adults that have, and how caregiving for these children, or it seemed to be very special for the individuals like Ashley Harris that's in our show, Jerry Bridges, and Pam Black. So what do you think of this? If you had an encounter with patients like this too?
I certainly have. You know, autism is one of those disorders that can be very trying for relationships, and it's so hard to communicate at times with folks with autistic disorders. But once you can break through that and find ways around that, you can have very, very meaningful relationships. Some inspiring stories come out of this. So we've got a really good show about this today.
Right. Well, you know, and Coach Stallings wrote that book about his son from the University of Alabama.
Absolutely.
That touched my heart. I read that story and got to see that interaction of that. So Asperger's syndrome and autism, what's the real difference between that?
Well, I think you have a spectrum of autistic disorders, and so you have severity, you know, on one end, and then you have a gradation of that. And so Asperger's is on that spectrum. And so, again, one of the main problems, communication. These folks get isolated because they're sort of in their own world at times. And so you have to use unique ways to bring them out of that so that you can have relationships with these children.
And like I love how you and Ellen, in the books you've written and the things you've talked about, is in certain situations like this, you really can't bring someone into your world. You got to go to theirs, right?
Yes, and that can be very trying, but you really do have to figure out a way to enter into their world. That's exactly right.
Dr. Potts, they're going to enjoy what we've got to offer and be inspired today, and I hope you'll stay with us with more of Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles.
You're watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts. We'll be back in a moment.
If you woke up with pain this morning, you are not alone. Estimates are that nearly 1/3 of Americans will experience chronic pain at some point in their lives. Optimal Pain Control by Franklin Pharmacy works directly with your physician to create a pain cream for your unique needs. Our staff of pharmacists has over 30 years experience in compounding. OPC by Franklin Pharmacy's custom formulas are created for you to maximize pain relief while minimizing side effects. From minor aches to severe neuropathic pain, let us be your partner.
You're watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts.
And welcome back to Prescriptions for Healthy Lifestyles. We've been talking about autism. And joining me in this segment is really a dear, seasoned friend of mine, Jerry Bridges, who is a musician. And he's also a dad and a great-granddad. So good to have you, Jerry.
Good to be here, Edie.
Well, we're talking about something that's very near and dear to your heart. Is that grandbaby of yours?
That's right.
And it's Emma Grace, right?
Emma Grace.
I've seen pictures of her. I haven't had the privilege to meet her yet, but she is adorable.
She is. She is.
So tell me how, when your daughter, did you find out before Emma Grace was born of her health situation, or after she was born?
After she was born.
So what was that like for you and your family at first?
Well, when the first time this happens to you, to me, I was kind of dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say or how to react. I just knew that I loved her. That's as soon as you see a child like Emma, she draws you to her, as you well know, and she will teach you what the meaning of love really is. But the good part about it is she also brought the entire family together. It wasn't just pulling Papa to her. It was, and she calls me Appa.
Appa, I love
which is great. But it's a very special feeling.
You know, and when you were telling me about it and how it brought all of you closer together, and you're being a singer, songwriter, musician. I mean, I've known you most of my life from growing up in the same little rural community, and we're reaching out to rural America now. You know, you were a man that always could brighten our days with music, and now I saw that you wrote a song for her, and I loved it when you played it for me, Saving Grace.
That's right. It was actually written by Joseph Baldwin and
Was
myself.
it? Okay.
We co-wrote the song. And when we moved to Belmont, Mississippi, Emma was there, and the reason the song came about saving Grace is everyone was drawn to her, and the entire community wanted to do things for Emma.
Oh.
So it came to be a little town on the outskirts of somewhere. That was Belmont, Mississippi, Red Bay, Mississippi. And they don't ask about how I'm doing, they ask about Emma. They really did come to her.
I think that was, you know, to me it was something that made a difference, and I think for people out there to know this, that, you know, we've got 800 numbers people can call, and we'll have those available on our websites at prescriptionforhealthylife.com, and giving, isn't that great today that we've got people that can tell stories like yourself?
Oh, yeah.
We've got information that helps the child's life be better. What I found through my friend Ashley Harris, too, that's on the show, that she has 2 autistic sons, or one has Asperger's, is that she says they're brilliant. My children are brilliant, and what I loved about it, and what I've been around, is they teach you so much about love.
Oh, they do. They do.
Is that what you found the most, is of that unconditional kind of love?
Well, it is. You have to be. You have to put yourself on their level, and once you find out what that level is, there's nothing like it in the world, because there is no wrong. There is all she knows how to do is love you. She doesn't know anything but that, and she responds how you respond to her. So if you hug her, she hugs back. If you love her, she loves back.
I like that. Now, how many children do you have, Jerry?
I have 4 children, 9 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild.
Oh, my goodness.
Been married 44 years. Anniversary comes up in April. It's April the 20th.
To Susan.
Yeah.
We got to give Susan props.
It's easy to remember. It's Hitler's birthday. It's April the 20th. Yes, and Susan is my wife. Love her to death.
You know, I actually saw Susan a few years ago at a Red Hat Convention. I said, Lord, Susan, what were you doing? I was speaking. So,
Right.
I mean, I thought I had a reason to be there.
Right.
But there she was, and she said, you know, when you get seasoned, you just want to go have fun. You don't want to think about anything. And I thought that was so cool, typical of her. But she'd always been so supportive of you your whole
That's
career.
true.
I mean, I watched her be in the shadows of you, because you were not only so successful in your own right, but that you helped one of our legend icons like Waylon Jennings, and were his
Right.
band leader for how many years was that?
I was with Waylon 23 years.
And, you know, I love that about you, you know, and the fact that we're in our own little hometowns museum. Isn't that pretty cool?
That's cool.
That I love that with Waylon. You know, he suffered, I know, with diabetes, and we talk about diabetes on our show.
He
and
did.
had he taken better care of himself, he might still be here.
I'm sure he would have, you know.
And what is it that you think our message ought to be out there to parents that go through this with their kids with autism, and or grandparents is something you could just leave with a message?
Well, you know, this is also like Downs for whatever the child, or even like Susan with cancer. The best thing you can do is to be supportive, be there for someone. I think that what we're here for, what we need to learn is how to serve, not how to be served. We've got to learn how to give back. And when you see something that someone needs, don't hesitate. At least ask, at least see if there's something you can do.
I love that, and I do know that Susan's going through breast cancer now, and being a survivor, I know you can do it, and she's doing hard things, but
yes.
she's fortunate to have the love that you give her and her family. And that's a very strong key that Dr. Potts and I talk about, is love is the greatest of all.
That does it
isn't
all.
And I thank you, my friend, for coming and being a part of this and sharing a little bit of Emma's world and your families.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts. And we'll be right back after these messages.
So Lord, can you do those little things like saving grace?
Hi, I'm Sarah Evans here with friends Rollins and Kumar, who've been helping Children's of Alabama celebrate its 100th birthday. They're here for care at the Alabama Center for Childhood Cancer and Blood Disorders, the largest provider of cancer care for children and young adults in the state. At Children's, we treat every form of cancer, and we're committed to a cure. You can be too. Donate now so thousands of kids like Rollins and Kumar will celebrate lots of birthdays, including their own.
You're watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts.
Welcome back to Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts. We're talking about autism, and I'm with Ed's mom, Pam Black. And welcome, Pam.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. This is a tough subject, but it's also a blessing that I've learned from talking with not only some of my friends and that have children or grandchildren, that they said in the midst of storms, there's been some silver linings with this, and I'm sure you're going to share with us those same stories. So in talking with you on the phone, Pam, I was intrigued with your knowledge and your compassion for your son and to want to help other people, as we want to do here on rural television around the world. Tell me what it was like for you when you were first found out that Ed was diagnosed with autism. Was he very young?
Very young. He was 3 years old, which it was typical, you know, at the time for diagnosis. And I can remember, I guess the main thing that I can remember is with the diagnosis, thinking, what does this mean for my future? What does autism really mean? When you're given a diagnosis, you walk out of the office, and on the way home I thought, I feel strange. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I realized I wasn't breathing. It's that emotional. I could not get past what I had just been told to even take a breath.
It was a fear in you, that you probably because you didn't know what to do.
Absolutely. You have no idea what to do. You have no idea where to go. You have no idea what this means for your child's future. And unfortunately, no matter how hard you try and no matter how you try to plan, many times, I mean, Ed's 13 years old and we're still not really sure where he's going for his future. That's a very scary place to be.
But you've come together as a family, and when you were when he was first diagnosed, I remember you told me, though, you did not want to believe it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I didn't want to believe it.
So, to those that are looking in on this might think, what would you say to them what would they start looking for?
Well, I guess, you know, the main thing with Ed was just the constant it come and go in and out of a room that would just drive him insane. And I can remember he would put his hands down beside and he would scream just to the top of his lungs. And it wasn't something that he had done his whole life. With Ed, this began at 18 months. So we didn't immediately have a child that we could see there's going to be a disability, there's going to be a problem. At 18 months, it was just like it came on. He lost all language that he had, and we were left wondering. He was pretty typical of kids with autism as well, ear infections, antibiotics. So at first we began to explore, was it hearing loss from the antibiotics? But the behaviors became more odd and more odd until there was no way that we could deny there was something besides for hearing loss going on.
Well, when you did accept this, was it hard for you and your husband both to cope with this as a family?
My husband and I, as pretty typical of a lot of families that were living with autism, Ed's father and I divorced shortly after his diagnosis.
It's just hard when anything traumatic, you would say that if there's a death or there's a dramatic chronic illness or something that you just don't know what to do, and I can understand that this has to be very difficult for you. But you were in another state, too, and your family was in Alabama, and you were in, where were you living at that time?
We lived in northern Iowa, and we moved back to Alabama, and we actually got our firm diagnosis after we moved back to Alabama. And I guess the main point I would like to make to try to help people understand what families are going through is that autism is all-consuming. When I tell you that Ed's father and I divorced, I tell you that to let you know how difficult it is. It wasn't that one was right and one was wrong. It is all consuming. It consumes your life.
Well, tell me, we talked briefly about the loss. You know, when the excitement of having a child and seeing what a child is going to grow up to be, and then you have to mourn that loss, that child is not going to grow up to be what you thought it was going to be, but yet to find the blessing with something that is all consuming. What can you say to encourage others out there that's experiencing this?
I think that, you know, there's so many ways, so many avenues that you have to explore. Education, you know, what the medical diagnosis actually means, what your insurance is going to cover, what it's not going to cover. And in all of that, we forget to offer parents that kindness that we offer to other parents that lose a child. Because with that diagnosis, you have to bury those dreams. You have to bury everything that you thought you were going to have or offer to this child, and you have to readjust that around that autism diagnosis. It trumps everything in your life.
And I know that you've become a hairdresser and you have it at your home, so you could probably be there more for Ed.
I have a salon, and a salon here in Sumiton, and I actually work by myself. And the reason I work by myself is to offer more time to him. We have a room there set up for him, and I will tell you, definitely, it impedes every part of my life. As big of a blessing as he is, it limits everything. It limits income. You know, your medical bills go up. They're just things that insurance doesn't cover. It affects every aspect of your life.
Well, and today, I know we're going to go into Ed's classroom. That's why we're here in Sumiton, Alabama, for people that want to know more about it. I'm going to put some pictures and things up on the website and let people get to know Ed a little bit about him. But before we go, I'd love for you to share a little bit about just that journey of what he was like from a little boy to what he is today, and how we see him interacting here in a classroom, and how you celebrate his moments.
It's amazing to have the opportunity to offer that, because in all of this darkness that we find in the world of autism, there is always hope. And Ed has made amazing strides. We don't have full conversations yet, but Ed can speak in sentences, and what a blessing. He can tell me when he's sick, he can tell me when he hurts, he can tell me when he's hungry, and he can also just let me know how to help him. He can tell me that he loves me. And unfortunately, there are a lot of parents out there, and their children have no language skills, and they're never blessed to hear those words.
Thank you, Pam, for sharing a little of Ed's story with us.
You're watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts. We'll be back in a moment.
Hi, I'm Edie Hand, here for Scott Crump Toyota in Jasper. Scott and I have teamed up to bring a program to your community to encourage and educate children on the importance of mentorship and self-esteem. Visit our websites.
A Pocket Guide for the Alzheimer's Caregiver by Dr. Daniel Potts and his wife Ellen helps you understand this disease and get the best care possible. Go to alzpocketguide.com or any online bookstore for your copy. You're watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts.
And joining me today is Ashley Harris. She is a singer and a songwriter. Welcome, Ashley.
Hey, Edie, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad you could come by and be with us today.
I'm so glad to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
Share with our viewers some of the challenges you've had in your own personal life, perhaps with your children, that someone out there could identify with about your children's situation.
Okay. Well, like you were saying, in addition to all these things I'm doing, I'm a mother. First and foremost, I'm a mother, and that is the absolute center of my world. And naturally, being a new mom at age, I think I was 22, I was young, I wanted to do the very best job that I could do. I wanted to be the best mom I could be, and was reading all the books and just plugging away. And I started to notice that developmentally, things weren't really following textbook. They weren't really panning out like it seemed they should. And with my oldest, and two of my children are special needs. And so at the time when I had this new little baby, I didn't really know what was going on, and it was really frustrating.
I can imagine. And
discouraging. And I felt like I must be doing something wrong. Why am I having these challenges? And then as he continued to grow into his toddler years, and then when he hit school age 5 and got into school, after switching schools 3 times, I realized it's probably not the school. There's probably something going on with my child. And that's kind of heartbreaking. You feel a little bit crushed to realize there's something that's
What was he
happening
diagnosed
here.
with?
And he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at age 7. And at the time, I think it was in years 2002, around there, and Time magazine actually had just done a story about Asperger's syndrome and sort of brought it out of obscurity in the U.S. because it's been commonly known about, and people are aware of it over in Europe, but not so much here in the U.S.
It's more genetic.
Mm-hmm. And I was sort of at the forefront of this new wave of a generation of people having children with Asperger's syndrome. It's now every 1 in, I think, 100. It's epidemic.
I know, and you have 2 children that battle this, correct?
I do. I do, both my sons. And, you know, the upside is that they're exceptionally intelligent and vivacious and creative, and they look at the world differently than we do. They make the world really fascinating. Einstein, they say, probably had Asperger's.
You know, and I see it because I think that they do. They have their own world of creativity that seems to make our world better, because don't they love better?
They do. And the challenge as a parent is that rather than having your child adapt to the grown-up world and follow rules and adapt to life, you have to learn how to adapt to them and how to recognize that they're not misbehaving, they're just different. And that was a big challenge, to recognize that and to not feel like you're a failure as a parent because you're having these unusual circumstances that you're looking around, nobody else is really dealing with what you're dealing with. And so getting on that crusade to discover what's going on and then putting some positivity in it, that this is not the end of the world, this is a new adventure. And even though I go to bed crying every night because I don't know how to handle this new adventure, it's still my new adventure, and I have amazing kids, and I love them very much.
Well, you know what my doctor says to me? If you cry a lot, you don't pee more.
Did you really just say that?
But if you think about it,
gotta get that political
so you can
out
laugh
somehow.
about it then. You can think about it. But
yeah.
no, I know that obviously your faith has played a lot into this, so share with me when that really came stronger into your life.
Well, anytime you go through anything difficult, Edie, as I'm sure you very well know, and you come up empty-handed and you don't know what else to do or where else to turn, there's only one place to go, and that's to God. And every night, every day, would get on my knees and just pray for strength, pray for patience, pray for endurance, perseverance, you know, just, and to have hope, to not be discouraged in the midst of my struggle. And that went on for years and years and years, you know. I mean, my oldest son is now 16, and he's doing remarkably well. He's in a mainstream high school and successful and happy and thriving and very well loved. He's very vivacious and dynamic and charismatic and challenging.
You see, I think that's great. But if they could, our viewers can learn from this, is that it is about love and support, finding the best we can for our children. Because we want to give our children the best. We want them to have their dreams, no matter what.
And about awareness, you know, learn what is available to you. We put our sons in therapy, and we've read tons of books. I've read dozens and dozens of books about it. And there are things you can do to manage Asperger's that a lot of people don't know about through diet and vitamins, because they're a little bit deficient in some of those nutrients that are regular, you know, that most people have, just, you know,
so it's finding a balance.
Finding the balance.
Well, thank you for being with us today on Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles. And we've just heard Ashley Harris and singing and telling her story of her children with Asperger's syndrome as well as autism. It's been very special hearing these stories, hasn't it?
It has, and we hope that each of you are inspired, if you have a disability or a child with a disability like that, about how to overcome this and begin to communicate and open up that relationship again. We hope you've enjoyed our show, and we hope you will tune in again to Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles.